Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We're going to work on second chapter of Ujjwini's book, Theurgy and Philosophy. And as a special treat, Mariana will do the book summary. And I'm really looking forward to it. I've already read it. It's great. So have a listen, and then we'll talk about the book.
Okay, great. Just as a precursor, many of these words I've only read in my head, so if I mispronounce them, please don't judge me. I'll learn eventually. Okay, so in chapter 2, Eustovinus challenges a modern scholarly stereotype that theology belongs to philosophical discourse about the divine, while theurgy represents ritual manipulation. In ancient systems, ritual was not mute and philosophy was not merely abstract. Rites spoke through sacred names, symbolic gestures, and vocal performance, and their speech was not metaphorical, but ontological. The rites did not simply draw divine powers down into matter, they also carried cultic gestures, images, and words upward into the noetic realms. In this sense, language, symbol, and ritual formed a single continuum of ascent. This suggests that theurgia may not be a late Neoplatonic innovation at all, but the philosophical remainder of older Egyptian, Mesopotamian, and Semitic temple practices, traditions in which divine agency orchestrated the ascent. Sacred names and cosmological hymns functioned as vehicles of reascension, moving the soul through planetary spheres towards a region of noetic fire associated with solar or demiurgic divinity. Within later Platonism, especially Iamblichus, Proclus, and Damascus, this cumulates in theocrasia, a perfect fusion or homecoming of the soul into the divine. Crucially, this union is not achieved by human initiative. The gods unite with the divine spark within the initiate through sunthemata, the symbolic tokens they themselves implanted into the world. Iamblichus warns that gods can only unite with gods. The mortal ego must be emptied so that the God within may commune with the gods without. Thus, theurgy is not an eccentric add-on to Platonism, but its hidden core, a metaphysics of return in which speech, ritual, and symbol become the radiant vehicles of ascent. Egyptian ritual, and also perhaps Tantra, provide the clearest ancient paradigm for this model. Statues, temples, mummies, and hieroglyphs served not as inert objects, but as receptacles of the divine Ba, the noetic and life-giving manifestation of the gods. Divine presence did not occupy space, but irradiated forms with luminous unity. The daily temple rites, awakening the statue, dressing it, and feeding it, reenacted the primordial descent of divine light into the cosmos. Humans served merely as instruments within a liturgy of illumination. The soteriology of the theurgist mirrors this descent. What descends must ascend. The restoration of the Eye of Horus embodies the reintegration of fragmented forms into mat, the archetypal truth and wholeness. When the Ba permeates the human body, the initiate becomes the golden statue, a permanent vehicle of ascent. Speech obeys the same logic. Incantations and names are not psychological techniques, but anagogic sunthemata, that is, tokens that tether the sensible to the intelligible. They preserve the link between ineffable hanatic essences and their vocal or imaginal expressions. Even imagination, often denigrated in philosophy, becomes the transitional organ through which the Osirian soul unfurls its wings and ascends among the stars, themselves visible hieroglyphs of eternal form. Proclus insists that because the universe is composed of images, the philosopher must operate through images, For the cosmos is the demiurgic intellect dreaming itself into manifestation, a living hieroglyphic text waiting to be read. Us Divinus then expands by surveying additional late antique theurgic vocabularies. Bidis, an Egyptian priest prophet, transmits the primordial name of God, which functions as cosmic language, an emanative word through which all things were made and towards which all things return. Heka, the divine word power, mediates both the procession of creation and the reversion of the initiate. Before speech lies silence, the unspoken name. From silence arises Heka, and from Heka, the articulated word. True invocation therefore begins in silence and cumulates beyond speech. Chaldean Theurgy elaborates these principles through a complex grammar of fire, breath, sound, and light. Hecate's strophilos, a rotating sphere, becomes a vocal image of the Father. The spinning of the device mirrors the circular articulation of divine intellect. The all-working fire breathes and sounds forth the cosmos. Pneuma is not air, but luminous articulation. Rays of noetic light carry intelligible order downward, while ritual invocation rides those rays upward. The result is a two-way traffic of symbol and illumination. The text goes on to explore the imaginal and energetic dimensions of ascent. The soul undergoes a kind of tantric alchemy or Osirian mummification, reconstituting its immortal vehicle. The noetic seeds of fire within the soul awakens and guides return. Bird language symbolizes oracular and solar knowledge. Rhythmic chanting aligns human breath with cosmic vibration. The tongues of gods are their names. To speak them is to participate in new. Eventually, the ascent reverses procession, from voice to speak back to silence, from multiplicity back to the womb of the cosmic mother. The climax identifies the universe itself as a spoken statue, an agalma filled with intelligible radiance. Stars, rites, numbers, and names are the sung vocabulary of creation. To chant the divine names is to reenact the original demiurgic articulation of the cosmos. In Egyptian and Babylonian terms, the priest becomes the opener of heaven, chanting out the universe by the name of everything. The ultimate result is not merely salvation, but pantheosis, participation in the demiurgic activity itself. The liberated soul co-creates with the divine, concluding the cycle of procession and return. Us Divinus presents Theurgy as a technology of ascent grounded in the metaphysical structure of the cosmos. Creation unfolds through silence, power, speech, light, and multiplicity. The initiate reverses this cascade through ritual, chant, imaginal transformation, and divine agency. Because the gods themselves place the symbols, names, and rays of light into the world as synthemata, ascent is not imaginative fantasy, but the reactivation of cosmic pathways that already link the visible to the intelligible. Within this system, speech is operative. Sacred names, vowels, and chants function as noetic tools. They align the soul to divine frequencies and reenact the demiurgic articulation by which the cosmos was formed. Imagination serves as the liminal organ of ascent, where gods take form and the subtle body acquires its immortal vehicle. Practices such as breath, posture, stillness, and rhythmic chant stabilize this vehicle, allowing divine light to descend and lift the soul upward along luminous rays. The body itself becomes a vessel for divine presence. Like an Egyptian cult statue awakened by light and sound, or as they say in Kola, the body is the yantra. Yet Theurgy insists that human effort alone cannot complete the ascent. gods unite only with gods. The mortal ego must be emptied so that the divine spark within can answer the divine spark call without. The cumulation is not vision, but theocracia, a union of God with God, in which speech returns to silence and light returns to source. Thus, the text encodes not only doctrine, but practical initiatory itinerary, purification, imaginal ignition, vocal operation, luminous participation, divine reversion, and epiphatic union. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, that's just so good. I'm glad that I let you do it.
Thanks. It was fun.
I'm glad you volunteered. You didn't really, but I appreciate it. I was wondering, I mean, I know, and I think people maybe who've been seeing these videos, or at least the two or three that we've done, know that you're involved in creating rituals of your own. And I'm wondering how you see this kind of feeding into this being what you just described, and Ujdevinis's theory or description. What he's done is really cool. He's reconstructed, at least from a theoretical vantage point, he's reconstructed the ancient practice of theurgic ritual. I'm not sure that he's got everything, but at least he's given us a framework. But I'm wondering how would you see that as feeding into what you would be doing in now that you've read this, not assuming that you've already done that.
I mean, I am so enjoying this text. It's confirming a lot of the work that I do. Namely being, so I was really thrilled that they brought up Kola Tantra, because that came into my life, I'd say like about a year and a half ago. And it's something that caught my attention because it had a vocabulary that I think explained a lot of things that I was experiencing, but also first and foremost, like Adya Shakti is supreme goddess. And this is like really when you're getting into your practice. And that was the part that got me, is a daily practice to unite with the divine. And so I think, yes, I am a reconstructionist, and a lot of my ritual is based on my research of Akkadian and yeah.
Sorry, what is Kola for those who don't know, myself included? Tantra?
Sure.
I know about Tantra, but not sure about Kola Tantra.
So Kola means family. And it's a very obscure, like very esoteric form of Tantra. I mean, I'm sure there are many people out there who would say, like, I don't have a guru, so this is not something I should be practicing. But
is it Tibetan? Is it Hindu Tantra?
It's Hindu, yeah. I mean, yes, and it's pretty much
people are familiar with Tibetan Tantra.
Sure, yeah.
Familiar with Hindu Tantra, which I'm familiar with from reading Eliade and people like that. But sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no, it's fine. So it's essentially like a family or tradition of Tantra within, and it mainly focuses on Shiva, in Shivaism. It's, but essentially it's, at the core of it is Adya Shakti. And there's many different schools within that umbrella of Tantra. And I guess that I specifically use the term Kola to imply, like, Tantra itself, I think in Western culture has been obscured and kind of mangled in a way. So yeah, this is really steeped in mantra, yantra practices, and essentially like the core of what I took out of it was the sadhana. And I'm not sure if I'm saying these names right. I've only read them, but where you're keeping an altar essentially to your Devi. And what that really solidified in me, and it was this like great realization that in this practice of daily tending to these statues and to the yantras and reciting the names of this goddess in my mind, it was bringing myself into union with this divinity, but also showing me that that Devi is me. And so I see that in this text, in what he's saying of like the God imprints itself in these objects. And it's the reverence that brings them to life, the awareness on these objects that puts the ba, as he calls it, as the Egyptians call it, into this. It could be a yantra, like I see the hieroglyphs as a yantra. Are you familiar with the yantra? It's like a geometrical pattern.
Oh, okay. I thought it was spoken as opposed to hands, but that's not right.
No, mantra is spoken. Yantra is the visual. Yeah. And like a key teaching in Tantra is that the body is the yantra. And I spent a lot of time meditating on that. And so to see that come out in this text on Theurgy is just really wonderful, because it is this macro microcosm relationship, if that makes sense. So I think like
yeah,
and I think like that's what I'm really enjoying about this text, is like it's reiterating these practices of purification. Like we have to, in order to unite with that divine, we have to essentially destroy the ego. That's generally what spiritual awakening does, is just kind of lay you on your ass. And like Osiris, you put the pieces of it together again, you know?
Yeah, Osiris is torn apart by Seth, and then Isis has to go and find the pieces, and then they have to come back and bring them back together, put them back together again. And Ish Divinus talks about ourselves, the initiate, being in that sense of Osiris as being torn apart and having to be put back together again as well. Yeah. So you see that in Tantra as well, as where you're bringing back the disparate pieces of a torn personality, of a torn what do you want to call it, ego?
I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but personally, like I've heard people say, I'll say this, when you start to keep an altar to Kali, your life is going to transform, and it's not going to be easy. Like she is not a gentle divinity to work with, because she is the destroyer of illusion. And it's often that illusion that allows us to live, like walk through this world in comfort, but it's really ignorance. Ignorance is bliss. And so I think when you're starting to bring that divinity descend into the body, into your own vehicle, it's a powerful force. It's not gentle.
Right. Do you see, are you being taken over by, I mean, in Ush Divinus's description, or at least in some of the Chaldean descriptions, one is overtaken by the god or goddess, and inhabited by, it's called systasis, by the god or goddess, and for a time, for the time, perhaps when the ritual occurs and that kind of thing.
I think that maybe I don't have the right word for it, but like there's different outcomes depending on like what you're doing. Like if I'm preparing for a ritual, which it might be like a very intense ritual that I'll only perform those like a handful of times a year. I am preparing myself to be a vessel for divinity. But oftentimes in my like just kind of lunar type of work, what it was, I really want to look into the Astrophilos or Inkses, because
they're very simple looking. You can actually get them,
yeah,
or the ones that they describe are really elaborate. But if you look at Sarah Johnston's description, you can actually buy them. They're almost like little children's toys. In fact,
yeah,
let me get one.
yeah. Show us.
I mean, here's the one I use,
Cool.
and
Yeah.
it's just, it's just two strings around two wooden pegs, if you will, and then you just go like this, and it begins to spin.
Does it make a sound?
And that, yes, it does. If it goes fat, I don't know if you can hear it. It's like a whirring sound, or like a shh, shh. And that's supposed to be the sound of the cosmos, the song of the cosmos, which I just love the idea of. And what you do is you use it before, I use it in my rite. I have a rosary that I've written for Hecate, and I use it in order to invoke her spirit and invite her to illuminate me, to inhabit whatever it may be that I'm worthy of at that time, whether I've been purified or not. It can also be used to perform magical actions, because she is as we learned in this reading, Hecate, she's perhaps, although probably a lot of scholars would disagree with this etymology, she's related to Heka, the Egyptian god of magic. But that's how you bring things into the world, how things are brought into the world, whether, it talks about mental and bringing the body through mental action. At the beginning of time, at the beginning, when things were first forming and generated. But supposedly Proclus used it to create a rainstorm, or
I believe it.
which is one of the questions I was wanting to get to, but I'm more interested at this point about how this perhaps how Tantra influences your rituals.
Yeah, totally. So like daily mantras or something that I use, which is a similar function to the Strophilos, but what I am aiming for in those states, so in traditional Tantra, you've got a rosary that has 108 beads, and you recite the mantra 108 times. Generally in your head, though, not as you don't want to be too verbose with your mantra, because it's not attracting the right energy, so they say. But what I've noticed in that state is this ability to reach a state of nullification. And what I mean by that is where this concept of my body, this concept of me as an individual being, just sort of nullifies, like it doesn't exist. And for me, like that's kind of my launch pad to altered states of consciousness, so to speak. I think it's for my own, and I can only speak for myself here, but I think that is an important step of adeptship, because when I am preparing for these larger rituals, if there are any remnants of myself and I am opening myself to this way higher divinity, I'm going to she is a harsh mistress. I will like say that in my own experience. Um, so yeah, I think what he's outlining here is this it's not just like you have some grandiose ritual and that's that. Like these are daily practices that are preparing the vessel, preparing the physical vessel, and then also it sounds like this is like how the Kabbalists put it, like the Merkaba light body. Like there's so many words for it, but this golden light body is also this vehicle of spiritual ascent. So I think in order to even attain that, we have to do work within the body itself, if that
Right.
makes sense.
It does. Um, I think some of the Chaldean stuff is they're a little bit leery of the body, which is one of the facets of their practice that we might want to overcome. Although
Definitely.
they do talk
It's
about,
overcoming it,
well,
absolutely.
I mean that they don't like the body. The body is the source of all error. The body is the source
The,
of confusion. That's what has to be purified. You have to purify the soul. It's the soul, that part of you which will ascend and which does ascend through these rituals. It's interesting that you talk about daily practice as opposed to big practice. Um, and I'm wondering about that. I'm wondering, I mean, for me, there is daily praxis, or at least once a week, often 2 or 3 times a week, where I have my altar, I have my candles that are glowing. I say my celebration of the different entities that I celebrate. But then, I'm thinking more along the lines of, well, what about the big um, celebrations, the big rituals where, well, back in the day, animals were sacrificed, uh,
mm.
blood was spilled, there was like all kinds of weird paranormal activities going on and that were occurring. And I'm just wondering, where does that come in?
I think that there's a distinction between ritual and ceremony and and even celebration. And so a lot of the, like Bacchanalia, for example, that's a celebration. But the priests and priestesses definitely had closed practices for that day. But I think like when we're, having the feast and getting into an ecstatic frenzy, it's different than ritual. It's
Okay.
yeah.
That's I guess I never thought of it that way because I thought the ritual was what brought it about. Ritual is what would bring about the systasis. Ritual is what would bring about the entities actually manifesting themselves. And I mean manifesting themselves in real, tangible ways.
Mm.
We
I mean,
talked
I agree that that's the
we talked
case.
we talked a little bit about the grimoires offline, and where entities are being called upon to help us make this journey of ascent. And I'm just wondering, what does that in any way occur, or should it occur, do you think, with the I think he doesn't really go into that, does he?
The ritual of ascent,
No, the
or
calling into being these entities
um,
which are helping one ascend. I mean,
I think he's calling it in the incantations, like when he says the names of the gods are the tongues of the gods. When you speak them, it is bringing them into existence. It's quite literally speak and spell. Um,
yeah, but I'm a much more of a realist than that. I mean,
okay.
Paul sounds very theoretical and good, and I think it's nice what he does. He brings a lot together here as far as theory, and philosophy is concerned, it's the actual practice that I'm wondering about, whether he does indeed capture. I mean, obviously, we don't have any rituals. We don't have any theurgic rituals. All we have are what we talked about with the Greek magical papyri, which kind of give us an idea of what may have happened. But it's along those lines that we begin to get into something else, I think, than what he is talking about. Or,
Mm.
I mean, or maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm wrong about that. But it doesn't seem to me that he's gone into the realm of magic, which is what theurgy has been accused of, right? I mean, when people think of theurgy, they think of magicians, right? You think of Aleister Crowley, you think of Eliphas Levi, you think of, De Bono and people like that, where people are called, and we think of grimoires.
Mm. But wouldn't you put that more in the realm of thaumaturgy, like wonder working? And
I wouldn't know, but I think it's certainly a category that one can look at.
and I would ask, like, what, when you're going into ritual, when you are going into these practices of uniting yourself with the divine, what is there a purpose for it? Are you
Unification with the one, right? And those,
okay?
yeah, that's all part of the process. I mean,
And
we
so would you expect, like, when you're saying magic, then, like, what is the expectation?
the expectation is to be taken through the different levels of awareness and different levels of consciousness that are required for me to ascend and gain this greater expanded consciousness.
Mm.
Where they talk about how long it took some people like Iamblichus or Plotinus, these Neoplatonists, how many times did they actually experience kenosis? Once or twice in their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big thing. And it's not just something that can occur overnight. And there,
Mm.
it's an entire process and a regimen of purification that is required.
Um, well, in that case, I don't think that Eustavinus really touches on what these, like, he alludes to what these initiatory practices are. And this is just based on my own research as well. And why I got really excited about this text is I think it comes down to this concept of the seven planetary spheres. And, like, even he mentions in this text that there were strophalos that were attuned to each sphere. And even those spheres it's not the supreme. It is just a language of sort of these, like, I kind of see these gods or planetary gods as scaffolding for the one, right? So I'm very interested, and this is my current state of research, is understanding these planetary initiations. He even alludes to it in some of the work that I'm doing in this text when he talks about Ninurta in the Babylonian war god. And how it's I forget the name of the bird, but there's this bird creature.
It's the
Um,
Rhyneck,
yeah,
or
the Yingus. What
the
is it?
the Eongus, it's the Rhyneck bird, which was a bird which was used by ancient Greek magicians as part of a love potion process, and then
Mm,
it became the word, which is really strange, for the intermediaries from the one, or from uh it's in the Chaldean oracles, it's called the father, or the
hmm
transcendent fire, but they are the intermediaries which go up and down between humans or the material world and this ultra spiritual world. And Hecate,
Mm.
they're invoked or they're used by Hecate, and that's what the Strophilos does. The Strophilos calls them into one's presence so that one can begin to communicate with these higher realms of consciousness.
Mm.
Is that what you meant?
It is what I meant. He's in this particular myth, he's talking about this bird that steals the tablets of destiny from either Enki or Enlil. And
That's a different
I
bird.
was,
I think
it's like he's relating it to the Rhyneck.
Yeah. Okay.
And so what that had me thinking of is my own research on reconstructing these Babylonian planetary initiations that I believe is encompassed in the architecture of the ziggurat.
That sounds really cool. That sounds like, and he talks about the pyramids too, doesn't he? He talks about that
Yes.
being the architecture of the divine.
Yes. Yes.
It's really interesting. Yeah.
It's so interesting. And so, yeah, that brings me back to this part of my research where, so in that architecture of the ziggurat, the priest or priestess is standing at the crossroads, and and you have at the crossroads, you have this initiation of ascent and descent. And so this just had me thinking about, I think that's the piece we're missing, is remembering that the high priest was calling forth the tablets of destiny. And I think what that was this, cosmic alignment. And we see this across many different cultures. I think it's encoded in like the chakra systems and the Kundalini. So like when you have your 7 planetary spheres within in alignment, your body is in alignment with that. So I think, again, like going back to these daily practices is like, okay, cleansing the chakras, getting the vessel ready to hold this higher consciousness. But then that ritual is calling down on these greater forces. And, is the ziggurat the consecrated space? Maybe, but can we do it with just like the vessel of the body? I don't know. Maybe we'll turn into dust. But
you talked about the crossroads. Hecate is the guide of the crossroads.
Exactly.
She's the one who takes us up or takes us down, depending.
Yes.
And that's why we invoke her, in order to be able to rise and, well, to be purified, so that the gods can then, as we purify ourselves, the gods will come to us, because we are becoming, it's like a magnet. A magnet is attracting their power because we become like them. So we can attract that power, and they can illuminate us to move forward up these spheres, up these levels of consciousness. We talked before about the planets as being kind of levels of consciousness, or beings of consciousness. I think to me, that's very powerful, because if we can think of other entities as being real, which I think we have to do if we're going to be theurgists. We have to think that there are real entities that aren't just psychological states. They have a reality that, I don't know, I've experienced in my life. And I think that they can be called upon if we prepare ourselves correctly enough. I like the notion of what were they, the tablets of destiny?
Yeah.
Is that what you're
the
working?
Tablets of Destiny.
You're working on reconstructing a ritual for that? Is that sounds?
Yeah. It could very well be my life's work. I don't really know, but
But because, and the reason I'm interested in this is because Theurgy is supposed to enable us to kind of short circuit destiny and fate so that we can kind of control our fate and our destiny.
Yeah. Well, I landed on the tablets of destiny, just kind of going backwards from these Abrahamic concepts, being like the last judgment. We're just really trying to find the root of like, where did this mythology come from? Because for some reason in my sphere, that's a very hot topic right now. Like, I think for the rest of the world too, we're like, is the Antichrist here? Are we in the end times? What is going on? But it
Yay! I hope
definitely
so. I hope so. I'm all for it.
rapture me, baby.
Exactly.
Yeah, but no, but that's what I landed on, and I love this idea of, first and foremost, like purifying myself so I could stand at the crossroads and call down the tablets of destiny. I think even in that space, like in this imaginal realm, I'm imagining, I mean, what is more harmonious than the planets going around the sun? I don't think I could think of anything. So to think of that harmony coming into a ritual space is a very powerful thing.
Think about the universe, though. I mean, I mean, yes,
Well,
we
of course.
have a solar system, then we have solar systems, and then we have galaxies. Your mind just starts beginning to expand as you even think about that.
Yeah.
Black holes and
But then I get into forms. This is just me personally, but like just trying to connect with that energy, I get into these forms that are beyond my comprehension. I think for some reason, archetypally, I can work with planetary
oh,
consciousness.
sure. But who knows? Maybe that's what it's all about, right? We 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 have to be able to deal with what we have. And then as we move up the levels of consciousness, perhaps then that will be possible, for all of
Mm.
us, right? I don't think it's possible for anyone, just right off, except maybe, Stephen Hawking or Roger Penrose and those types of things. And they don't think in terms of what we do in terms of spirits, entities, consciousness as being some type of real thing which humans can tap into so that they
Hmm.
can themselves become more aware on a different level than just purely, mathematical, abstract, theoretical. That we do believe that, yeah, those things are real, no doubt, but we can also experience that spiritually, whatever, however we want to think about that. We though those realities can impact our lives and our spirits or whatever we have that can rise above
Mm.
this body, this space, this time space that we inhabit, and go on to other realms of reality, other levels of reality, whatever those might be.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think it's important too, though, to go in with intent. Like you can create a ritual space, but what are you calling on? And
Absolutely,
yeah,
yeah.
and going back to Hecate and the crossroads, I believe that like that crossroads space, the consciousness that you're accessing is the world soul. And that's step one. Like you got to initiate into Gaia, into this like rocket ship that you're standing on before you can start to understand these further consciousness of Venus, Mars, even the solar consciousness. Um, which, by the way, he kind of alludes to in this that, and I don't know if you saw this kind of pattern, but it almost seems that Us Divinus is alluding that the solar consciousness is the demiurgic consciousness, which I thought was interesting.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
mm.
Why did you think it was interesting?
Oh, well, I've always had trouble relating to this like solar initiation. To me, it's like this lunar initiation is like way more accessible for some reason. Um, because it's almost like the light on the form. I see this like divine feminine as the form and the masculine energy as the light. Um, I think maybe even this pushed my understanding of the demiurge, where in the past I may have looked at it as something to steer away from. Like I'd
I mean, like Gnostic, because the Gnostics don't like the demiurges.
sort of, yeah,
The
but like
archons,
also
the
it,
archons.
yeah, like I guess I was looking at it as more of a like an egregore type energy, like just a reflection of divinity, but not divinity itself.
Yep, that happens.
Um, yeah, yeah. But yeah, this helped me understand like what we're talking about when we're talking about solar initiation.
Well, Hecate, as the Chaldeans speak of her now, this gets into my area of what I've been writing about. There are two Hecates. There's the chthonic Hecate who deals with the souls who die and are, then have to go on and, find some type of justice and reparation for what has happened to them or what they've done. That's the Hecate of the the chthonic. Then there's the sidereal Hecate, who is solar and is related to the solar entities that brings about illumination of all things. She and souls literally gives soul to the entire universe,
Mm-hmm.
so that the universe can come to be known, so that like Stephen Hawking can know or figure out or be illuminated by the mathematical formulae which determine the quantum states of black holes. That is given by Hecate as far as making intelligible this material universe in her sidereal role, in her role as a goddess of illumination from and when we think of the sun, it's not just our sun. There's light, but light has its beginning way, 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 way back, before our sun. It's billions and billions of years old, and its genesis is just extremely old. I mean, the light, obviously, as you know, the light we're seeing now is billions of years old, probably. That reaches us. So it's important, I think, that we understand that Hecate has two faces, actually
Agreed.
three
Yeah,
faces,
yeah, yeah.
and but so I don't see a necessity to personally, I don't see a necessity to make that necessary demarcation between the lunar and
Mm.
the solar.
Hmm.
But I do think, and I think this is where I really agree with you, is about the body, and the body has to go through some type of regeneration. It
Absolutely.
can't be despised like it has been in the past by mystics and by philosophers, et cetera, et cetera. The body has been denigrated, and I think and that just goes to show why women have been denigrated, because they're considered beings of the body, which is
Mm.
because they're like, who knows, because they're controlled by their bodies more than men are when it comes to childhood, menstruation, etc.
Yeah, and this is exactly why I would argue that there is importance in the solar and lunar initiation, because I don't think that we can find that perfect union um, unless this vessel becomes androgynous. Uh, I don't know. I mean, you see that in Shiva and his like he has an androgynous form. It's like a perfect union of Shakti and Shiva. So like I still am going to like there's a reason why the moon is the cornerstone of the temple. And it's like, how would this solar consciousness see itself? And it can only see itself in reflection. So that to me is like why that is the way it is and why the initiation, the solar and lunar initiations are important. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. How did I don't think we ever heard, we being me and whoever listens to these videos, how did your lunar ritual go that you sent me?
um, well, I think I sent you the full moon one. That one was great. That's kind of like my standard full moon ritual, but
And that's not lunar?
for
Wait. That's not lunar?
no, it's lunar. It's lunar.
Okay.
But okay, there's like there's cycles to it, right?
Right.
So I'm gonna do a different ritual on the full moon versus the new moon. For me, I don't know about other people, but the new moon is like I feel like I can access deeper layers of the unconscious. So they tend to be more closed practice. Um, the full moon is more, I feel like celebratory, more energetic, more people involved.
Or did you have a group when you celebrated, or did you do it all by yourself?
Um, for the new moon, it was just me and one other person.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
And yeah, it was good. It was good.
I think we have to make these things more communal. That's why
I agree.
that's why I'm hoping that when we get, and for everyone who's listening or watching, Marianne and I, well, Mariana basically is looking into doing something that is group oriented. And so we can get people together to begin to explore these things in a real way, not just theoretically, not just words in a book, but really begin to look at, the powers that we can call forth, if you will, from my perspective, and begin to tap into. And from her perspective, I believe she's talking about looking at some type of thing that we can invite everyone to get involved with.
Yeah.
It's still in
More
there.
to come on that. Yeah.
Exploratory stage.
Yes. And I'm still inclined to, have it, like I said earlier, or in our last meeting together, why go to the managers when you can talk to the boss? So
But
I think
we're talking about Venus. I mean, well, Aphrodite, weren't we? Speaking of which, today is Philo Medecion, is the day that I celebrate Aphrodite in my life.
oh, great. Are you have any rituals planned?
Yeah, yes, I follow the rituals that Kupperman, a man named Kupperman, has put forward. Their theurgic rituals. So there's a morning rite, there's a
Oh,
after
cool.
rite, and an evening rite. So, yep, absolutely. His is more philosophical oriented. There's nothing like what I've been talking about, but I've been trying to mulling over in my pea brain, which is that I want to get more magical. I do have some rites that do that. For example, my rosary for Hecate in does, I think, incorporate more of the magical, if you will. It has the Nomina Barbara, it has chanting and incantations and that kind of thing. That's the kind of ritual that I want to move towards being able to develop. But more to come, as you say. More
Yeah.
to
We'll get there.
Yeah, yeah, no, this is great. Uh, and I really want to thank you, Mariana, for doing the précis of the
Thank
book.
you.
Let's meet again in hopefully 2 weeks, but we'll see.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jess.